That doesn't mean it doesn't look like a monster when it swallows you, right? And anything monstrous is easily made demonic. So separating chaos from evil is no easy matter. It's no easy matter for modern people, right? Although I think the separation, can and should be made. He blackmailed 11-year-old girls into performing degrading sexual acts on the internet. The monster category is he's predatory reptile.
But we're distancing, right? So that we don't explore that.
Yeah, and no kidding. Right? Do you want to relate to it? No, I'm serious. If you right, exactly. Look, if you look at most mythological representations of that kind of understanding, even if it's a divine thing that manages the understanding is almost always associated with the destruction of consciousness, at least of some element of consciousness. So that's partly why people shrink from it. It's like it's not that easy to define what's human. Look, you could say, let's say you get angry. Well, that's one way of thinking about it. Another way of thinking about it is anger gets you. Now, modern people think they get angry. Archaic people, they're smarter. They didn't think that. They thought anger got you. And it was a form of possession. And so you shake out of it and you think, wow, that was me? It's like, well, yes and no. Because anger isn't you, because you can get angry and you can get angry and so can your dog. And so, anger isn't you, even though it might manifest itself inside you. The way archaic people dealt with that is they just turn that into a transpersonal deity, right? It's a personality force that exists eternally, that manifests itself in each individual. It's a much more intelligent conception. So it's more intelligent because the phenomenology is right. It's a personality. Even though it's limited, it's not human, so it's soulless in a way. But it's a personality. And it plays with people. Right? The Greeks knew that. That's their tragic sense of life. Human beings are the playthings of the gods. Well, maybe you don't have to be, but generally that's the case.
Okay, so now you said bag against you. So what exactly is this you? What is it?
Good question. Good question. Some people are so possessed, say, by anger, that's pretty much all that's there. Stay away from those people. Right? So, but, one way you can think about it is that you can think of yourself as a hierarchy. I had a good picture of that. The personality development tends towards a hierarchy with something at the top. And it's hard to tell even if the thing at the top is you. It's more like the whole structure is you. The thing at the top is at least mostly what you'd experience as you. It's like your capacity for conscious awareness, your capacity to transform yourself, because that's partly what consciousness does, right? You're not that conscious of things you know how to do. You tend to be conscious of things you don't know how to do. And that's sort of what you identify with because you're aware and moving. But what a person is, that's a really, really, really complicated question. So one of the things Jung said, for example, is that, we don't have a philosophy or even a theology that encompasses what a human being is. We're too complicated. We don't understand ourselves. So... Well, sorry, no, go ahead.
And then just to invoke infinite by it, it seems like we have to rely a little bit on ourselves to pick up on the delusions, right?
Yeah, well, what's out there is complicated. So, for example, here's an example. On Puritan churches, there used to be this big eye. And that was the eye of God. Now, we found out there's a study done recently by psychologists that showed if you took undergraduates into a lab and you sort of, motivated them to cheat, if there was a picture of someone staring at them on the wall, they're much less likely to cheat. Which is real cool, eh? I think that's... But that eye, here's what I think the eye is. The eye is the symbolic representation of the judgment of dominance hierarchy. And the dominance hierarchy, you might say, well, is that I really out there? Well, it depends what you mean by out there. Dominance hierarchies have been around at least since crustaceans emerged. And that's 300 million years. And so the dominance hierarchy has had its eye on your ancestors for 300 million years. So it's probably out there. It's just that we're so materialistic and atomistic that we can't even see what we can't see. Like we're blind to our own ignorance in a sense. I think it's more a matter of not being able to correct them, not being willing to correct them once you pick up on them. You just keep doing the same. What's the definition of insanity? You know, the old joke. It's doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Right? But even that's complicated because, your parents are going to say, be persistent. Well, be persistent means keep doing the same thing over and over even though it isn't working. So these things are very, very complicated. There's no underlying algorithm that you can use to sort them out. So
we have two more questions.
Sorry, you thought of... Yeah. Well, the fundamental impediment, one of the things I noticed 10 years ago was that we didn't ever have our students in university make a plan for the future and justify it. There's no course that's plan your future and justify it. Because maybe you might think that'd be worth 40 hours of concentrated effort instead of just being an afterthought. And the more I thought about that, the more I thought, Jesus, that's weird. Why would that be? Like, we bring people into university, they're sort of the cream of the academic crop. They write a history essay, it gets critiqued. But no one says, here's what I want to do with my life and why. And no one comes and says, well, this is stupid and maybe you should think about this. And, think about it for God's sake. It's your life. And the more I thought about that, the weirder it got. So then I looked at the history of the education system in North America. And I found out that the elementary schools, pre-university, were set up in Chicago in the late 1800s by fascists. Really? This is before World War II, so being a fascist wasn't, associated with murderous genocide by that point. But they were set up to make the children of workers obedient. Well, workers get told what to do by other people. So that's been there for 100 years, and no one's noticed, which seems pretty weird. And it's even weirder in universities because theoretically you're being taught to be an individual, like a citizen in universities. But no one does that. And I think that's because people don't want to I think it's this responsibility issue again. It's like, it's so daunting that we just don't pay attention to it. And so, part of what I do is to make people do that. It's like, think about who you are. Think about the fact that if you don't get your act together, you will be one dangerous son of a bitch. Like one horrible, nasty creature. And you'll create untold harm. And don't do that. Set your life up so you're not inclined to do that. And think about it. And be aware that you are like that, even though you don't want to think you are. Right? Because no one wants to think they're a Nazi. But everybody is one. So... Look, it was 95% participation in Germany. And the only thing that distinguishes, the average person from Hitler is that Hitler was an organizational genius. That's the distinction. It's not the bloody motivation. It's the ability. There's no shortage of tyrants in families. It's probably the rule. And there's no shortage of tyrants as leaders. It's probably the rule. So since it's the rule, it probably applies to you. And if you're not a tyrant, you're probably a victim. So you can pick your category. Well, I am trying to do that. I did this goal-setting program with students at McGill who were academically struggling, and that seemed to work. And, we're trying to sort of commercialize that and see if we can move it around. The commercialization seems to be a necessary prerequisite to getting anything taken seriously. Like, you can't give things away for nothing because that just doesn't work. So, but mostly what I'm trying to do is talk to you guys like I'm talking today, and I, do my courses, and that seems to help. And people, the response is positive, which is weird. I've thought for 20 years that I'm going to get fired, but it never happens. So good, it's surprising.